The grave accent is a diacritical mark in many written languages, including Breton, Catalan, Corsican, Dutch, Emilian-Romagnol, French, Frisian, Greek, Haitian Creole, Italian, Mohawk, Norwegian, Occitan, Portuguese, Ligurian, Scottish Gaelic, Vietnamese, Welsh, Romansh, and Yoruba. Uses. Pitch. The grave accent first appeared in the polytonic orthography of ancient Greek to mark a lower pitch than the high pitch of the acute accent. In modern practice, it replaces an acute accent in the last syllable of a word when that word is followed immediately by another word. The grave and circumflex have been replaced with an acute accent in the modern monotonic orthography. Stress. The grave accent marks the stressed vowels of words in Maltese, Catalan, and Italian. A general rule in Italian is that words that end with stressed I, O, or U must be marked with a grave accent. Words that end with stressed T may bear either an acute accent or a grave accent, depending on whether the final E sound is closed or open, respectively. Some examples of words with a final grave accent are cheetah, mori, verto, mose, and porto. A typist who uses a keyboard without accented characters and is unfamiliar with input methods for typing accented letters sometimes use a separate backtick or even an apostrophe instead of the proper accent. That is non-standard. It is especially common when typing capital letters, or E instead of V. Other mistakes arise from the misunderstanding of truncated and elided words. The phrase unpo, which is the truncated version of unpoco, is mistakenly be spelled as unpo. Italian has word pairs where one has an accent marked and the other not, with different pronunciation and meaning, such as pero and papa and papa. The last example is also valid for Catalan. In Bulgarian, the grave accent sometimes appears on the vowels, and to mark stress. It most commonly appears in books for children of foreigners, and dictionaries, or to distinguish between near homophones, and. In a few cases, the stress mark is orthographically required to distinguish homographs. Then, it forces the stress on the accented word syllable instead of having a different syllable in the stress group getting accented. In turn, it changes the pronunciation and the whole meaning of the group. Ukrainian, Russian, Belarusian, and Russian used a similar system until the first half of the 20th century. Now the main stress is preferably marked with an acute, and the role of the grave is limited to marking secondary stress in compound words. In the descendants of Serbo-Croatian and in Slovene, the stress syllable can be short or long and have a rising or falling tone. They use 4 different stress marks. The system is identical both in Latin and Cyrillic scripts. In modern Church Slavonic, there are 3 stress marks. There is no phonetical distinction between them, only an orthographical one. The grave is typically used when the stressed vowel is the last letter of a multi-letter word. In Ligurian, the grave accent marks the accented short vowel of a word in a, e, I and u. For o, it indicates the short sound of, but may not be the stressed vowel of the word. Height. The grave accent marks the height or openness of the vowels e and o, indicating that they are pronounced open. E, o. In several Romance languages, Catalan uses the accent on 3 letters. French uses the accent on 3 letters. For example, the accent mark in leave indicates that it is not pronounced as the schwa in lever. The u is used in only one word, our, and it is homophonic with our. Italian, Occitan, Ligurian also uses the grave accent to distinguish the sound written o from the sound written o. Disambiguation. In several languages, the grave accent distinguishes both homophones and words that otherwise would be homographs. In Bulgarian and Macedonian, it distinguishes a conjunction from the short-form feminine possessive pronoun. In Catalan, it distinguishes, for example, ma from ma. French The grave accent on the letters A and U has no effect on pronunciation and just distinguishes homonyms otherwise spelled the same. It distinguishes the preposition a from the verb a as well as the adverb la and the feminine definite article la. It is also used in the words de acute ja, deca, the phrase California ela and its functional synonym deca, della. It is used on the letter U only to distinguish our now. E is rarely used to distinguish homonyms except in des, esart, and les. In Italian, it distinguishes, for example, the conjunction e from the verb e, the feminine article la from the adverb la, or the conjunction che from the reflexive pronoun se acute. The first two examples involve two homographs, and the last involves two homophones. In Norwegian, the grave accent separates words that would otherwise be identical, og and og. Popular usage, possibly because Norwegian rarely uses diacritics, often leads to a grave accent in place of an acute accent. In Romansh, it distinguishes e from the verb for me and n from n. It also marks distinctions of stress and of vowel quality. Length. In Welsh, the accent denotes a short vowel sound in a word that would otherwise be pronounced with a long vowel sound. Mwg, mug versus mwg, smoke. In Scottish Gaelic, it denotes a long vowel. The use of acute accents to denote the rarer close long vowels, leaving the grave accents for the open long ones, is seen in older texts, but it is no longer allowed according to the new orthographical conventions. Tone. In some tonal languages such as Vietnamese and Mandarin Chinese, the grave accent indicates a falling tone. The alternative to the grave accent in Mandarin is the numeral 4 after the syllable pa equals pa 4. In African languages, the grave accent often indicates a low tone, no bian jaka, Yoruba agbo and Hausa mace. The grave accent represents the low tone in Kanya Nefara Mohawk. Other uses. In Emilian-Romagnol, a grave accent placed over eo denotes both length and openness. In Emilian, eo represent, while in Romagnol they represent. In Portuguese, the grave accent indicates the contraction of two consecutive vowels in adjacent words. For example, instead of a aquela, one says and writes aquela. In Hawaiian, the grave accent is not placed over another character but is sometimes encountered as a typographically easier substitute for the okina, hawaii backquotai instead of hawaii. English. The grave accent, though rare in English words, sometimes appears in poetry and song lyrics to indicate that a usually silent vowel is pronounced to fit the rhythm meter. Most often, it is applied to a word that ends with ed. For instance, the word looked is usually pronounced lkt as a single syllable, with the e silent. When written as looked, the e is pronounced lkd, looked. In this capacity, it can also distinguish certain pairs of identically spelled words like the past tense of learn, learned, round, from the adjective learned, lrnd. Accents, sometimes combined with italics, are often applied to foreign terms not commonly used in of that are not fully assimilated into English. For example, vis-a-vis, pièce de résistance and crème brûlée. The layout of some European PC keyboards combined with problematic keyboard driver semantics causes many users to use a grave accent or an acute accent instead of an apostrophe when typing in English.